We are here in sadness and in brokenness and in so much love as we acknowledge the death of Myrna Kroot, as we are here and just watched so many of these wonderful pictures and heard her wonderful voice as she was so delightful and sparkly and lively that it is hard to also imagine and come to this moment of the reality of her death, which is not just the loss of one single person, which we know for us is such a loss when a person's light goes out in the world, but also the matriarch of your family representing this transition of a generation. And so we're here together as family and friends and community to all be together in all of our feelings and all of our tears and loss, and to start to remember her in the past tense, even as we feel her presence and see her in all of her sparkles that so many of you are wearing with the sparkly headbands, with deep love. The book of Ecclesiastes that we read at Sukkot time says, "To everything there is a season, a time for every purpose under the sun, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to pluck up that which is planted, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to lose and a time to seek, a time to rend and a time to sow, a time to keep silent and a time to speak." And today, this morning, is a time to speak, and a time for all of these things together to remember and honor the very fullness of 90 years of life, the very beauty that was Myrna. We are here with her, you, all of you, her family and her friends, as we remember the beautiful woman who was the daughter of Sarah and Joseph Friedman, the sister of Barbara and Joel of blessed memories, of Sheila of blessed memory, and of Bob. They were together the three Friedman sisters. Much like the vaudeville act, she was really the one who acted and who sang and who sparkled for everyone. Myrna was married to Donald and then to Jerry, and deeply, the relationships with all of you, her family, were at her heart. Myrna was the mother of Michael and Roseanne, and of David and Michelle, and the stepmother of Jason and Richard and Debbie, Randy and Lance of blessed memory, and the nana of Jennifer and you and Ryan, of Jason and Nia, Eric and Brian, of Alana and Adam, and the great-grandmother of Kiana and Kaya, Caden, Noah, and Yorgos. She was also known to many of you as Auntie Myrna, or Auntie Dolly, at a different point in her life, to Lisa Joy and Howard, to Joa, Levi, and Asher, to Mark and Stacy, and Jenna and Spencer, to Jamie and Jeff, Jessa and Ryan, Jordan and Jake, Andrea and Steve, Morgan and Evan, and her very, very long-time friends, like some of you who were friends with her for 84 years since childhood. I'm guessing you're Rita. And so we remember with love. One of our traditions as we remember is to recognize how important it is to be together. That one of our fears or worries in life is that we could be alone. And for Myrna, who loved to be surrounded and loved to be the center of attention and who loved her family around her, part of what we do is to make sure that she isn't alone and accompanying her body, accompanying her stories, as we do so lovingly today. The 23rd Psalm, the translation is in your folder inside, talks about that worry or fear of being alone or being separate and wondering where our comfort comes, and a reminder that we are always, always surrounded with great love. the 23rd Psalm. Mizmor leDavid, Adonai roi lo echsar, bino dashe yarbitzeni, al mei menuchot, yenach aleini. Nafshi yeshovev, yancheni b'magle tzedek, yancheni b'magle tzedek, leman shemo. Gam ki elech begeit al mavet, lo hirara ki ata imadi. Shiftecha umishantecha hema yenachamuni. Taroch lefanai, shulchan neged zorerai, dishanta bashamen roshi, Kosi revaya, ach tov, achesed, yedifuni kol yemei chayai, v'shavti beveit Adonai leorech yamim, Adonai roi lo echsar, Adonai roi lo echsar. God is my shepherd, I shall not want. God makes me to lie down in green pastures and leads me beside still waters and restores my soul. God leads me in the paths of righteousness for the sake of God's name. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will not be afraid, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, your power and support, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, and my cup runs over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of God forever. Part of our sacred task this morning is to begin to tell Myrna's story, to talk about her and what we loved about her and what she meant to you. It is not possible to tell the breadth and entirety of 90 years of a life in a few minutes together, and that is not the task we try to take on. But rather, what we do is talk about what she meant to us and what we remember in this moment, because we will be telling her story and carrying the things that she gave us and taught us and meant to us for always, as long as we teach to our children and the next generation and we keep her alive through memory. So we'll hear from a few of you, her family members, who will share a little bit about your memories and your reflections. We'll start with Myrna's son, Michael, and I'll invite you here to the pulpit to share your memories.
Good morning, and thank you all for being here. To honor and celebrate the life of my mom, Myrna Kroot. I promised I wasn't going to do this, but I guess I am. A woman who touched so many lives in her 90 incredible years. She was born in 1934. First grandchild in her family, and it's safe to say she took her role seriously. Mom had an uncanny ability to remember every birthday, anniversary, and even the smallest milestones, probably until the month before she passed. Myrna was not just the matriarch of our family, she was our historian. Bridge between generations and the glue that held us all together. She collected photos, so many photos, that her house looked like the Louvre in France, actually. Except every masterpiece was one of us. If you ever been to her house, you know what I'm talking about. She didn't just remember history, she preserved it, floor to ceiling, picture by picture. She even had a dead room, right? Sheila and I spent the night in there one time. Sheila woke up in the middle of the night, hit me, said, "Michael." I said, "What?" She said, don't you feel like people are staring at us, right? I said, "Yeah, I do," but it was important to my mom. She didn't, Mom's life wasn't always roses. She raised Michelle, myself, and David all on her own. She worked full time, did the best she could to make sure we were loved, cared for, and she worried. She was the biggest worrywart you ever met in your life. If worrying was an Olympic sport, she'd have had more gold medals than Michael Phelps. But that worry came from a place of love and concern. She always led with her heart, even when life was hard. She wasn't perfect. None of us really are. She made mistakes along the way, but what mattered most was that she never stopped loving us, never stopped caring, and never stopped doing everything she could for us. Speaking of perfect, if you went out to dinner with her, everything had to be perfect. Temperature, taste, or if it wasn't, it was going right back where it came from. Those of you that went and ate with her know what I'm talking about. Mom also had a remarkable gift for connecting with people. She could meet someone, no matter their age, leave an impression they'd never forget. She was a fast friend, a good listener, and somebody who made everybody feel special, no matter their age. Everyone knew her. She had a fashion sense. Always polished, always put together, matching shoes, earrings, purses, and headbands. Believe me, she had a ton. When I packed them, I couldn't believe how much she had. That was Myrna, stylish, meticulous, always ready for her close-up, even if it was just at a family dinner. Life threw her plenty of challenges her way. In the last few years, she met pain head-on. She was pretty adamant about not taking heavy drugs. She met it head-on with strength, grace, and the occasional laugh. Even when things got tough for her, she found a way to smile for us or for a camera, for a picture. As long as whoever was taking the picture paused so she could take her glasses off. For me, her greatest gift was the lessons of life she taught: respect, love, family, perseverance. Perseverance for sure. She taught me to listen, care deeply. God, this is harder than I thought it was going to be. To always make time for people who mattered most to you. I spoke to her almost every day of my life. Those conversations were my anchor. I'll miss that the most. Just talking to her. Whether it was nonsense or family, whatever it was, right? Pain, she needed something at the store, whatever it was. What I always admired about my mom, she had a great work ethic, right? She used to tell me, you wake up in the morning, you go to your post. which I inherited, or tried to inherit. You know, you now, Mom, pass the torch to all your family to stay connected, to be historians of our family. Well, sorry. We'll do our best to maintain the attention to detail and keep everything organized. She set the bar high to do that. A birthday card from you was never just a card. It was like a book. Your thoughts, your love. She was pretty genuine in everything she wrote, she meant. As we say goodbye to you today, I know every single person here has a story about you that'll make you smile, maybe even laugh, your protective nature, or just your warmth and kindness that they would remember. Mom, thank you for unwavering heart. You lived 90 incredible years, gave us much to carry forward, and we will. We'll honor you by telling your stories, sharing your pictures, singing, dancing, and living with the same love and resilience that you did. I promised you that I would get you back home with your parents and your two sisters, Barbara and Sheila. So the three Friedman sisters are together again. Whew. Like Sadie used to say, hello and goodbye. I love you. For me, it's also I'll see you later. Thank you. Whew.
It is a hard and beautiful thing to do, to remember. And with such heart and honesty and truth and feeling, it's an honor. It is an honor. It's harder. It is, nothing prepares you for this moment. And that's as it should be. We should not be prepared for these moments because they will all hit us and come in the moments in the way that they do. And to be in our places of grief, our Jewish tradition tells us that we shouldn't pretend that all is sanitary and clean. We should feel our feelings and be here in them because it is a measure of all of the love that is inside. So I want to invite her stepson, Jason, to join us and to share with us your words and memories.
As many of you know, Myrna was my stepmother. She helped raise me, excuse me, much of my life, and I will be forever grateful to her. I remember back when I was a child and I would bring new friends over to the house and I would introduce them to Myrna. And she would always say, I'm Jason's wicked stepmother, Myrna. And of course, nothing could be further from the truth. Myrna did not have a mean bone in her body. And she was as loving a person as you'd ever meet, as you all know. Second, Myrna treated me not like a stepson. And I didn't feel like a stepson. I was her son. As we all know, Myrna had her endearing quirks. As Michael talked about, one of them was going out to dinner with Myrna. I remember when she would order fish, it was always the same story. Started the same and ended the same. Is the fish fresh? The fish has to be fresh. Because if the fish is not fresh, the fish is going back. I also remember when I was a child, Myrna worrying constantly, as Michael talked about. And when I was a small child and I would leave the door and go out to the bus stop, I may not have finished my orange juice, or I may not have had my jacket and gloves. So it was at least maybe once a week, Myrna would come out of the front door, yelling down the street with her bathrobe and her curlers, "Jason, you forgot to drink your orange juice. Or you forgot your hat and gloves, you'll catch a cold." It wasn't cold, it was cold. And of course, my friends were always just laughing and laughing. But I could never get upset with Myrna because I knew her intentions were always good. Because that was Myrna. She cared about people immensely, including family. Family was everything to Myrna. All you had to do was walk into your home, and you would see the pictures from floor to ceiling. It was almost as if it was wallpaper, and that was all her family, the people she loved. So, to my wicked stepmother, I will be forever grateful to you, and I will miss you more than you could have ever imagined.
Thank you, Jason. And now I want to invite Myrna's niece, Andrea, to read on behalf of your dad, her brother-in-law, Bob.
Okay, just imagine that I'm my dad. I'm told I look like him, so. And I'm also told I kind of act like him, so I'll just channel my dad. So hi, Dad, if you're watching, which I'm sure you are. This is from my dad, My Memories of Myrna. I'm so sorry that I'm not here in person to honor Myrna today, but my two daughters are representing our family. My sister-in-law Myrna and I had a close bond, especially after she became a single mother while taking care of her 3 young kids. When they were growing up, Michael, David, and Michelle would frequently come over to our house and spend the night and play with toys in our basement. I became sort of her pseudo-husband, helping her out whenever she needed advice or needed something done. She loved my daughters, Jamie and Andrea, and they loved her very, very much. They called her Auntie Dolly because she reminded them of Dolly Parton. When we moved to California in 1979, Sheila would talk to Myrna almost every week. When Myrna moved back to California 5 years ago, the two sisters were able to reunite. They talked daily then. And Sheila looked forward to her twice-a-week visits with Myrna, where they would have lunch together, followed by a competitive game of Rummy Cube, which was Sheila's favorite game. And we were joking as we were talking because Myrna would never let the competitive side go. Even as my mom's Alzheimer's got worse, she always wanted to play exactly by the rules. And she would say, "Sheila, you can't go out if you don't have 30 points." And we'd like, "Myrn, just let her go out, let her go out." And they loved it, though. They had so much fun. After Sheila passed, I would visit with Myrna often and bring her a stash of her favorite Three Musketeer candy bars. One of the great things about Myrna moving back to California was that she could enjoy birthdays and milestones with all of her kids, grandkids, and great-grandkids. One of the best memories we all had with Myrna was being able to attend my granddaughter Jessa's wedding last year, where she was the last one to leave the dance floor, surrounded by her family that she loved so much. And not long after, in June, we were able to celebrate her 90th birthday. I'll never forget how Myrna gave an off-the-cuff speech thanking everybody one by one who was at the party. I recorded the speech, which is something I will always treasure. My family is going to miss Myrna very, very much, especially seeing her smiling face, her colorful outfits, and her fancy headbands that she wore every day, even when she was bedridden. There must have been something in the Friedman genes because they all had to match perfect, all three sisters. Myrn, you're finally pain-free, and the Friedman sisters are together again and reunited with your parents, who you miss so much. Hopefully you're playing Rummikub with Sheila once more. Thank you.
Music was so important to Myrna, both as a child, where she sang in the Jewish vaudeville, and the Yiddish that she spoke, and her love of her grandfather, who was a cantor and who toured with one of the famous Yiddishists of the time. There are many different songs in Yiddish. We're going to hear a little clip of one that felt just appropriate for today, of My Yiddish Mama. And this is a recording that was actually made of Joseph Rosenblatt singing that song, the famous cantor who her grandfather toured Europe with. We'll listen to a little bit of it and then the words.
Ich will bei euch a Kasche fragen, sucht mir wer es geht. Mit welcher Eiere vermegis, wenn Gott alle mehr. Me kauft das nicht, dir keine Geld, das gibt mir nur im Sinn. In doch als men verliert zu Zeug, wie Tränen men vergisst. Als Zweite gibt men keinem nicht, es hilft sich kein Gewinn. Ahoi, wer es hat verloren, der weiß schon, was ich mein. A jüdische Mame, es gibt nicht besser auf der Welt. A jüdische Mame, oi weh, wie bitter, wenn sie fällt. Wie schön lichtig ist ihr Haus, wenn die Mami sucht. Wie traurig finster wird, wenn Gott nimmt sie auf Eulam Habung. Ihre Wasser in Feier, wo sie gelaufen vor ihr Kind. Nicht halten ihr Feier, du siehst gewiss die größte Sinn. Oi, wie glücklich in Leib ist der Mensch wohltat, als das schöne Matune geschenkt in Gott. Nur ein altes jüdische Amen. Oi, Mame, mein.
A Yiddish Mama. I'd like to ask all of you a question. Tell me who knows. With which dear possession does God bless everyone? It cannot be bought for no money, it's only given for free. And when it's lost, how many tears are shed. A second is given nobody, no cry for help. Oy, who has lost it? He already knows what I mean. A Yiddish mama, it doesn't get better on this earth. A Yiddish mama, how bitter when she is missing. How nice and bright it is at home when mama is here. How sad and dark it becomes when God takes her to the world to come. In water, through fire, she would run for her child. Not to hold her dear is surely the greatest sin. How lucky and rich is the one who has such a beautiful gift presented from God, like an old Yiddish mama, my Yiddish mama. How lucky and rich is the one who has such a beautiful gift, which means how lucky and rich are all of you and all of us for the gift of Myrna. Through all of the hardships she lived through growing up in a house with no money, but with lots of love, to raising her children and then raising her second set of children and being the beloved auntie and nana to all of you. She loved her family, as you all have shared, and knew it when you walked into her home. There was no question when you were around Myrna that she loved you and that she wanted to be with you. And star on the dance floor or in the center, she wanted to celebrate her birthday for a whole month and to do it with all of you. She was the keeper of memories and stories. And after losing her mother and her two beloved sisters to Alzheimer's, she knew what it meant to be the one who remembered. We've heard about all of the aspects that made her who she was, from her particularities in restaurants to the very intentional way she dressed, to the staunch ways that she followed rules or had everybody follow her rules, whether or not they could, but because it was right. Myrna was resilient and strong and sharp and stubborn, sassy and independent, and she fought to keep all of those memories and stories. So in this moment, as we mark this passing in your family of a generation, it is a shift that says you now take on that sacred role of being the ones to be the memory keepers and the picture takers, and more importantly, I think the picture hangers, and the ones who will think about how you will gather your family together and how you will tell these stories. It was so much of her life and so much of the way that she brought all of you together. It is not a common thing anymore that we gather around very large dinner tables, whether it's a Seder table or a Thanksgiving table or a wedding table, with everyone who is a family that comes in close together. And people continuing to tell stories and stories and stories. It is remarkable that she lived to have great-grandchildren who knew her and knew her well enough to be able to say, I will record all of the stories and take on keeping the pictures, and to be old enough to carry their memories into adulthood with them. And that is a beautiful gift. And it makes the loss all the more painful, because you had so much of her, and there was much of Myrna to give and go around. As we remember her and we mourn her death, you now take on the shifting role of thinking how you will carry her with you and how you will keep those generations of your family alive and moving forward, whether it was the Jewish foods that she loved or the games that she played, or a piece of culture that doesn't exist in the same way in the Yiddish-speaking world of the past, but exists very much in how you all love each other and how you all carry each other forward. Our Jewish tradition recognizes that our bodies and our souls are two different parts, that our body is a vessel. It's a sacred and beautiful and very well-dressed container that holds the essence of who we are. But our tradition also teaches us that our body is a finite entity. We are born, we live for hopefully as long as we can, and 90 years is a long time with a lot of richness and fullness, a lot of joy and a lot of struggle. And that all of us will at some point have an ending. But the part of us that makes us who we are, the word in Hebrew and in Yiddish is neshama, our soul, is the same word for breath. And it comes into our bodies when we inhale for the very first time when we are born, and it leaves our body when we exhale for the very last time. And what we do as we pray together that her body will be at peace is that we pray that her soul, her wonderful, sparkly, singing, bright, joyful soul, is released. And in all of our brokenness and our wide openness and our tears and our torn apart at our grief at her death also is a different kind of opening. Because as our hearts are cracked wide open with vulnerability and with memory, it creates a space for her soul to come and live inside of us. So we chant this blessing, this prayer for her soul, El Male Rachamim, and I invite you to stand as we sing this blessing, that her soul may go and soar and ascend before we take her body for one last act of caretaking. El Male Rachamim, Shochein Bamromim, Amtzei Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfei Hashchina, B'malot Kedoshim Utehorim, Kezohar Harakia Mazhirim, Et Nishmat Mirala Batsor V'Yosef, Shehalcha Le'olama, Began Eden Tehe Menuchata, Anabal Harachamim, Yasti Reha Beseter Knafecha Le'olamim, Utzor Bitzor HaChaim Et Nishmata, Adonai hu nachalata, ve'yanuach b'shalom al mishkava, ve'nomar Amen. God, full of compassion, who dwells in the highest reaches of the universe, grant full rest under your loving presence among the holy and the pure, like a light glowing in the firmament, to the soul of Myrna Friedman, Jerry Kroot. Merciful One, shelter her underneath your wings forever, and bind her soul among the living. The compassionate One is her portion. May she rest in peace. And together we say, Amen. I invite you to be seated for just a moment as Doug shares with us a few announcements.
This concludes the service here in our chapel. The interment will take place immediately at the family's graves at Waldheim Jewish Cemetery. If you're not going in procession, this is gate 54. It's off of Des Plaines Avenue, south of Roosevelt Road in Forest Park. Following the interment today, the family wishes to invite all of you that are in attendance today to join them at Bar Siena. That information's on the inside portion of the funeral service folder you should have received. If you did not receive one, they are available as you depart today. And again, this will begin after the burial. If you please take note on the inside of the service folder, the family has also asked that memorial contributions be made to the Alzheimer's Association. Again, that's on the service folders. For those of you watching the service online, that information is on the website you are currently on. For those of you going in procession with the family, the procession will be forming in our parking lot. Please make sure you obtain an orange funeral safety sticker. That sticker should be placed in the front passenger side of your windshield. We would also ask that you please have your bright headlights and flashing hazard lights on at all times. For an additional measure of safety, our staff will be placing magnetic flags on the tops of the vehicles throughout the procession. As we drive in procession today, please drive as close as safety permits to the vehicle in front of you at all times. We want to avoid having any large spaces or large gaps in the procession, particularly as we pass through the intersections. At this time, I would ask that everyone please rise And the following individuals have been selected to act as pallbearers. I would ask you to please step forward. Mark Repkin, Spencer Repkin, Brian Carroll, Hugh Mokatani, Howard Rosing, and Asher Rosing. Pallbearers, you go to the far side, please.